that we will go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jill Kagan with the Arch National Respite Network and Resource Center, and thank you all so much for joining today's webinar. I just have a few housekeeping items before we get started. I'm hoping that most of you are very familiar with Zoom by now. If not, you probably see a black bar probably across the bottom of your screen where you can mute or unmute yourself with that little microphone or headphone set, or you can show your video or turn off your video. There's also a chat platform where you can enter questions or comments. You can see all the participants by clicking on the little icon that looks like little people. So I hope that you'll be able to interact with us during the webinar. Everyone has been muted upon entry, but you do have the capability to unmute yourselves when you want to ask a question. But we do ask that you kindly remain muted during the presentation. We will be monitoring your questions and comments in the chat panel. So again, feel free to type in your questions at any time as you think of them. The presenter plans to pause periodically during her presentation, and we'll see if we have any questions in the chat box. The webinar is being recorded and will be available for viewing once it's been archived, and we'll notify everyone by email when that's available. In a few minutes, I will put the link to today's PowerPoint slides in the chat box, so you can download them right now. We'll also send them around after the webinar with the recording. I do have one quick announcement. We do have another webinar scheduled next week that I wanted to make sure you all knew about on cultural and linguistic competence and what they mean for respite services and supports. And we're very privileged that we're going to have Tawara Good with the Georgetown University National Center for Cultural Competence, who will be presenting. And she'll be joined by our good friend Jed Johnson, who many of you have met before. He's on the Arch Advisory Committee, but he's primarily with Aging Services at CARF International. And he's going to be doing the more practical side of the issue, talking about cultural competency and diversity planning in respite services. So you'll get some real tools about how to plan for increasing diversity and being culturally competent in your efforts to reach family caregivers. And that webinar is scheduled for July 30th from 2 to 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time. You do need to pre-register for this event also, just like you did for today, to get the connection information. For those of you who haven't seen our emails, I will also upload the registration link for that webinar to the chat platform in a few minutes. For those of you who are not aware, Arch just recently released new voluntary national guidelines for providing and receiving respite safely during the pandemic, and I wanted to make sure that you all had the link to that document. It's a really wonderful resource that compiles everything that we know from CDC, from the WHO, from local and public health departments about providing services safely, but it's really focused on respite services, in-home and out-of-home, voucher respite, any kind of respite. I think you will be able to find the information that you need, and it's focused not only on providers who are trying to decide when and how and if to reopen services or run respite services. Many folks kept running even from the beginning of the pandemic. But it also includes decision guides to help family caregivers decide if it's okay and safe to use respite and how to go about doing that. And I just thought that you should all know about this because it's a wonderful complement that can be used in conjunction with the LifeCourse Respite Tools that you're going to be learning more about today. And I know that Jane is going to be going into a lot more detail about all of these tools in a minute, but I just wanted to make sure, especially for those of you who are completely new to the LifeCourse tools, these were developed specifically for respite by the folks at Charting the LifeCourse Nexus at the University of Missouri in collaboration with Arch. You can find the tools on the LifeCourse Nexus website. They are also available on the Arch website. And the look of the tools has recently been updated a bit, which is wonderful, but it has the same great content from when we introduced them a couple of years ago. I also linked here to the most recent webinar Arch hosted on using the LifeCourse tools, where we also heard from today's speaker, as well as from two members of the Lifespan Respite Network who are using the tools. And they shared with us how they're using them to ensure person and family-centered respite services. As many of you may know, the tools were designed to help families plan for respite and to find informal respite opportunities, as well as eligibility-specific services. A special note, I also wanted to point out a supplementary document that Arch prepared called Exploring Respite Options and Opportunities. And the purpose of this was to help family caregivers identify alternative respite options. We actually put this together before the pandemic, but it has become really quite a useful tool now, as it does suggest many wonderful virtual and other opportunities for finding respite in this new normal. So again, for those of you who are unfamiliar with the tools, I really encourage you to listen to that webinar and to visit the webpage and explore everything that's available there. I am very pleased today to introduce today's speaker, Jane St. John with Charting the LifeCourse Nexus at the University of Missouri, Kansas City at the Institute for Human Development. She has been wonderfully guiding us on this journey for several years since the tools were developed, and I am always excited to welcome her back. She's going to talk to us today about all the ways the tools can be useful when we're working with family caregivers or their family members during these difficult days of the pandemic. So Jane, thank you so much again for sharing your time and expertise with us, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that you may share yours.
Sounds good. Okay, give me just a second here to bring up the PowerPoint and we'll get going. Okay, full screen. And I need to move this out of the way. Okay, I'm trying to get to where my slideshow, there we go, play from start. Okay, sorry, I'll quit talking to myself now and talk to you guys. So welcome everybody, and I'm really excited to be talking to you today about how to use the Charting the LifeCourse Respite Tools during these very challenging times. I think you already heard a little bit about me, but some things you may not know. I am a mom of 3, and my son Ben has an intellectual and developmental disability. He is 30 now, for those of you that have known me for a while. He and his twin brother just turned 30 this year, and his twin brother just got married. You can see from the picture. So this is my family, and I've been with the Institute for Human Development for 18 years now, so long time. So today, I honestly always prepare a what we're going to do today kind of slide, and I didn't do that. I just realized. So today, I'm going to very quickly go through the Charting the LifeCourse framework. I see a lot of familiar names and faces on here, so I know a lot of you are already familiar, but for those who are maybe not as familiar or not familiar at all with Charting the LifeCourse, I want you to understand just the basics of the framework, and then we'll dig into the tools. I will show you how to find them on the website, which has been updated, so you may not recognize it, which is a good thing. And I will show you where they're at, how to access them, and then we will really start talking about how we can use them to help us during this time of COVID. So what is Charting the LifeCourse? First and foremost, it's a guiding framework. It really helps with guiding our thinking, our problem solving, our conversations, and really all of these tools you will see today are really just a vehicle for having good conversations with people and really finding out what's important to them, what they don't want to have happen, what their fears are, what their past experiences have been, what they want to do in the future. So it really guides those conversations. It's a set of practices. It can be around a specific area to enhance policy, procedures, any kind of change. And then, like I said, it's a set of tools. We have educational resources that are not actually tools that you fill out, but that will give you more information or help guide you along the way. And then we also have quite a few different tools or worksheets that you can use. So our core belief, and this is what we always come back to, this is our why, that all people and their families have the right to live, love, work, play, learn, and pursue their life aspirations in their community. Now, you notice we didn't say all people with disabilities or all people who need respite or any other kind of qualifiers, because quite frankly, we do that way too much in our fields. We tend to put ourselves into silos. And so we actually originally did say all people with disabilities and their families. And one day we just had one of those, V8 moments where we're like, wait, we can't do that. We can't keep siloing people. So it's about all people, regardless of disability, age, socioeconomic status, gender, anything, culture, anybody, everybody has the same rights to these different principles that we believe in. One of our first principles is that all people exist in the context of family. Now, it may not be a family you live with. It may be a family that is not your blood or that you were born into. But family is who you say it is. It's people that love and care about you and that you love and care about and that you want to have in your life. And so we also know that people and families need supports that are flexible and that adjust as the roles and needs of all the members change. And some of the visuals you see here really talk about that. So for instance, the family cycle impacts the member life cycle. So when you're thinking about one particular member of the family, if something happens in other members of the family's lives or just in the cycle of the whole family. So for instance, in my family, we have 2 children launched, we have 1 still at home, and we're getting later in life, right? We're looking at things like retirement. So that impacts my son, Ben. It impacts all the family members. And so our needs change as these different life cycles occur and as our roles change within those life cycles. Family experience, our families they have an impact on us whether we still live with them or not. By the way that we grew up, where we grew up, the different life experiences that we had as a family. And then lastly, caring for and caring about. This is one of the most important slides. And I could spend a whole hour talking about that, but of course I won't. But we really want to think about not just, especially with respite, you think a lot about, we have to make sure that this person is cared for, that, all of their daily needs are met. And that's really important. That's caring for. But we also have to make sure that we address caring about, the importance of having someone that loves and cares about them and that they love and care about as well, which is why we call it reciprocal roles. We want them to have roles in other people's lives as well. Who has the knowledge, who knows the things, who knows where all of the insurance information is, who knows about the doctors and, all of that kind of stuff. Who has lived experience with the person. Context of family, very important. We also want to make sure that not only does the person that we're focused on have a good life, that they have self-determination, that they're productive, integrated, included, interdependent, but we want to make sure that we support families in ways that maximize their capability, their strengths, and their ability to love and support that person and nurture that person to achieve those goals that we just mentioned. So it's just, whoops, I'm sorry. My mouth went wild there. It's really important that we address those family needs as well, which again, brings respite right up to the forefront of our thinking, doesn't it? Another principle is the vision and trajectory for a good life. It's really important to always have a vision of what you want. Most people, when we're thinking generally, say things like friends, family, a job that I love, having enough money to do the things I want to do, a faith life, my health, having choice, having freedom. People may even say things like wine and chocolate or any number of things, but we want people to have a broad vision for a good life. And we also want them to think about what they don't want. And that's really important. And sometimes that's where we start, because if you don't have an idea of what you don't want to have happen, how are you going to notice when you start veering that way? And that's where that trajectory comes in. The trajectory is really the path that your life takes, either on the way to what you do want or maybe towards what you don't want. And we show it as a straight line, but it's really not. If we could show it with lots of crooks and turns and crannies and everything else along the way, that would be like most of our lives go, right? You know, things happen. We get married, we get divorced, we, you know, lose our job, we start a new job, we, you know, things happen in life. And so our path is never a straight line, but we want to make sure that we keep it pointed towards what we want. And if it starts veering towards what we don't want, we want to get that back on target. And so that's why it's so important to really have a clear vision of those. The cool thing about the vision and trajectory is it can be long-term or very broad. It can be short-term. It can be issue specific. And so, you know, it can be about any part of life or any particular thing that you're working on. And so you can, I do visions and trajectories for just about anything. It's just second nature and I don't even have to think about it anymore. And then we talk about how trajectory goes across life transitions, life experiences, and life stages. The thing about life stages is we know that each life stage prepares us for the ones to come. And so when we're a young child, that's preparing us for school age, and that's preparing us for transitioning into an adult life. And then that adult life is a lot longer, but eventually we transition into aging. And so we try to think about what are the life experiences we need to have along the way to get us ready for those next phases of life. And then we have the life domains. And all of us have these different domains in our life. So daily life and employment is really just what you do during the day. When you're a child, you typically go to school. When you're an adult, you either have employment or something that's like employment, some sort of a meaningful day activity. Community living, not just where we live, but how we get around. Do we need modifications for our home? You know, transportation can be an issue. So community living is about all those different kinds of things. Social and spirituality, who are our friends? What do we do in our leisure time? What are our personal networks? Do we have a faith community? Do we want one? You know, what are the things that we do socially? And then there's healthy living. So of course that's about, you know, medical things. It can be about behavioral, nutrition, having affordable care, just generally being well. It's not just checking off the box every year that we went to the doctor, but how are we thinking about things like nutrition and fitness and all those things that help keep us healthy. And then there's safety and security, and that's being prepared for emergencies of any kind. You know, we live here in Missouri, we're in Tornado Alley, so we're always thinking about preparing for those kind of emergencies. You know, things like legal rights, guardianship options and alternatives, all fall under safety and security. And then lastly, we have advocacy and engagement. And you may have heard this in the past referred to as citizenship and advocacy, but we changed the name to advocacy and engagement recently. And if you'll notice, all of the icons have changed just a little bit as well. And so that's really about, you know, being a part of communities and making choices and having valued roles and responsibilities. And so those are the life domains, and all of those life domains are interconnected. You can't really think about one without thinking about how it impacts the others. The three buckets, again, are something that we all need in our lives at some point or another. Discovery and navigation is really about having the information, you know, knowing how to navigate whatever it is you're trying to navigate. So if you have a disability or if you're aging, you may not know how the systems around those things work. And so you may need somebody to help point you in the right direction. You may want information when you get a new diagnosis or when something new happens. And so everybody needs information, and navigation help sometimes. One of the other buckets is connecting and networking. And again, we all need other people to connect with. It's really talking about that somebody who's been there, done that, and gotten the t-shirt, right? So for instance, when my son was young, you know, I connected with other families of young children that had disabilities because I wanted to know that there were other people out there that were like me and that were going through the same things I was going through and that I could ask questions of. And then finally, goods and services. What are the things that we need, whether it's medical equipment, home modifications, day-to-day services, things like respite would obviously fall under there. And then finally, we have the STAR. And we're going to dig in a lot deeper to this, so I'm not going to go over a lot on this right now. But the thing about the STAR is, traditionally, when we thought about supports for people, we always started with the green part of the STAR, the eligibility specific. What are they eligible for? What kind of paid services can they get? And those are wonderful, but the fact is that not everybody can get paid services. Only about 25% of people get paid disability services or paid aging services. And so we know that we have to think of ways to, number one, enhance when people do have eligibility supports. How do we enhance that and make it even richer and make it go further? But also for that 75% that may not be able to get paid services or get paid respite services, how do we help them connect with other kinds of supports, like relationships, like technology, like things in the community that anybody can use because you're a member of that community? And how do we help them build their personal strengths and assets, their skills, their abilities, their life experiences, things that they're good at, things that they actually have that can contribute to whatever it is that they're working on? And so think of that STAR as kind of a bank of possible resources and possible supports that you can tap into. And so I'm going to build the life course here for you in one slide. This is the person who exists within the context of their family and their community. These are the life domains that we all experience and that are interconnected. Excuse me. These are the 3 buckets of supports, again, that we all need. And then this is the integrated support STAR, the trajectory to a good life, and the life stages. So that's the life course in one slide. Any questions about the life course in general? I went really fast through that, but I think most of you guys are familiar. Okay, I don't hear anything from Jill, so I think we're good. So now we're really going to talk about the Charting the LifeCourse Respite Guide and Tools. And I'm going to stop sharing for just a second so I can switch you to the website. Oops. There we go. Okay, so this is our new and improved Charting the LifeCourse or LifeCourse Tools website. When you first get there, you'll see that there's navigation across the top here. I hope you can see my cursor moving across there. The first one you come to is the, oops, sorry about that. Things pop up sometimes on my computer and it just happened. Okay, and that's back to that one. Okay, can you guys still see my screen okay? If you can't, let me know real quick. Okay, so you want to go to the LifeCourse library and hover over that. And again, I apologize, this looks really small on my screen, but as you hover over that, you're going to see a drop down. And on that drop down, you'll see LifeCourse Framework, Foundational Tools. And when you get to Exploring the Life Domains, if you navigate over to the left, you will see Respite all the way at the bottom. So we're going to click on Respite. Respite has its own page. That's how important it is. Okay, so here's our Respite page. So we have Arch, of course, on there as our partner who we developed all of these materials with. Talk a little bit about why Respite is important, the benefits of taking short breaks, and then down here is where you can download any of the tools. You can hover over them it'll, if you click on that little arrow, it'll show you a picture of the tool. That is not how you download. So we'll go back to the download. So if you want that actual tool, then you hit download tool right below it. And then that will let you download the tool onto your computer and save it and do whatever you want to with it. These tools are all fillable. That was something we did not have before. So all you have to do is download that and you can click right in there and start typing and it will let you fill out the tool on your computer if you want to. You can still print it and fill it out by hand if you want to, and that's fine too. And this is the full portfolio that we're going to be picking apart here in a few minutes. This is one of the webinars that Jill referenced that's on the Arch website, but it's also on our website. And then these are just some excerpts from the LifeCourse or the Respite Guide. that you can, of course, get the guide, but then it also shows you some of the things that are in the guide. So anyway, feel free to explore that. The other thing I want to show you really quick, because we're talking about COVID today, we're going to go back and again, we're going to hover over exploring the life domains. And at the top, you will see a COVID-19 page that you can click on. And so I will be adding some of the examples I show you today, we'll be showing you today, and will be put on there as well. So we have a little webinar at the top that Shelley did, Shelley Reynolds. And then we just have a bunch of different tools. And so we have some individual, family, and self-advocate examples of problem solving during COVID, coping with COVID, social distancing, planning for caregiver, if there's a different caregiver. And then if you go down, we have also some organizational examples of how people use them. So anyway, feel free to explore those. I'm going to stop sharing and go back to the actual PowerPoint. Okay. And everybody should be able to see the PowerPoint again. So if you can't, please let Jill know in the chat and she'll tell me. Sometimes when you share and stop sharing, weird things happen. So again, here's the respite guide that Jill showed you earlier that I referred to. So how do we think about respite differently in the context of the times that we're living in, which are, of course, very uncertain times? You know, how can Charting the LifeCourse Tools help? So if you really think about the impact that COVID-19 is having on respite and short breaks, you know, we always say that respite funds are limited, and they're still limited, but, you know, I fear that they may become even more limited as budgets, state budgets and federal budgets react to the economy and the fallout from everything that's happened with COVID-19. I know in our state, we've already seen a bunch of cuts to just about everything you can imagine, from education to developmental disability supports and aging, and you name it, everybody's taken a hit. So, you know, respite funds are probably going to remain very limited. You know, the other big thing is, you know, and I experience this personally, is that caregivers may not want respite providers, either informal or formal, in their homes due to worry about, you know, the person that they're taking care of contracting COVID, or even the caregiver getting it, which are both very valid concerns. And so we have to keep that in mind as well. Excuse me. Respite opportunities in the community that we may have used before might be too risky now. You know, I hate it, but right now, you know, Ben is staying home most of the time. He's not going out in the community, and we don't let a lot of people in the house that don't live here. So we stay very isolated because, you know, he has health concerns. I have health concerns. My husband has health concerns. You know, we're all in a mess, but we don't want to get this stuff. So it's risky to do these things that normally would work just fine. Some care recipients may not be able to take the necessary precautions, things like physical distancing, wearing a mask. Ben loves wearing his mask. He doesn't leave it alone and likes to fiddle with it, which again is not good, but he will wear a mask. But for some people, that's very difficult and they may not be able to do it. You know, practicing good hand washing, not touching their face, not touching everything in sight. You know, so all of those things come into play as to why we are being extra careful right now. And everyday life may be just more complicated than usual. You know, working at home, parents of young children who have had to learn how to be their child's teacher because the children weren't able to go to school, uncertainty about what's going to happen this fall with back to school. You know, we live near the Kansas and Missouri border, and so we hear about Kansas and Missouri, and school districts all over the place are changing their minds every other day about what's going to happen this fall. And so uncertainty is really big and makes things very complicated right now for families as well. So this is the front page of the Exploring Respite portfolio. You will notice it looks a little bit different than it did before. It had the blocks of color before, has the same exact questions on there. And I'm going to show you an example of how Ben and I worked on this for our life and for our thinking about respite during COVID. And so it was a good place to really, under the what is going on in my life, it was really a good place to just spell out what life looks like for us right now. You know, I've been working from home for the past 4 months, which I love, and I will be for the foreseeable future. But Ben is at home too. He's not going out and volunteering like he was. He's not going out and exploring the community and doing all of his other activities. And he's a very social he's a very social young man. And he's used to being out and being around lots of people. And now he's stuck home 24/7 with mom, which is, he tells me quite frequently, kind of boring. But it also makes working for me sometimes very challenging. And it also creates a need for me to sometimes just get away by myself and do something, right? Even if it's for 5 minutes. We get on each other's nerves. It happens, right? And so, like I said before, we're very careful about outside people coming in. We're trying to minimize that risk. How would taking short breaks help? Goodness. Sometimes when we're each doing our own thing, it just makes it better when we're together. Like right now, Ben chose to stay upstairs today. I'm in my office in the basement. There's a place where he can hang out and do stuff down here, but sometimes he just wants to get away from me. And that gives me a little bit of freedom as well. And so he's able to be upstairs on his own. I just check on him from time to time. And so, that's been helpful. It also helps for me to be able to get work done. Sometimes it's just, to have a break. And sometimes I just need a mental health break. So that's just a little bit. I didn't quite get to the bottom part, but I just wanted you to kind of see an example of the kind of things that you could, work through with people and put into those different areas. This is the guts, the inside of the portfolio. So this is the trajectory page, and I'm going to show you how Ben and I filled that out as well. So for Ben, we really talked about what his good life was. And that's not necessarily dependent on COVID. So it's the life he would like to get back to. So things like volunteering at the fire station, being able to go out and play basketball and swim. And he wants to get another tattoo. He wants a couple more tattoos actually, but right now I don't feel like it's safe to go to a tattoo parlor. So, going to concerts, nobody's going to concerts right now, but Ben doesn't understand that. So his good life right now is kind of, a lot of it's on hold. For me, I talked about some of the things that were important for me. Traveling is something I love to do. Not now, but, getting my nails done every 2 or 3 weeks. Again, I'm putting that off a lot longer now. And I have to wear a certain kind of mask. And, it's one of my indulgences, which I know to some people sounds weird, but sometimes you have to have those things that's my time to get away and to just be me time. So our vision for good respite here in the middle, right? So we're taking into account what's our vision for a good life overall for both the person who's receiving the care and the person who's the caregiver. But what's our vision for good respite? Mom needs a mental health break. I need time to run errands. I put down shopping, but really shopping means ordering online and picking up curbside. Sometimes I just need someone or something to keep Ben occupied while I'm in a longer meeting or doing a presentation like today. Having a family member be able to come by and hang out with him, or, when it's not too hot, being out in the yard and, being socially distant from a family member or friend, but still being able to hang out and see them. Sometimes we both just need some me time, right? So he needs it, I need it. Our vision for good respite is to make sure that Ben's safe and secure and has something to do, has something to keep him occupied when I'm taking a break. And then for him to be able to interact with people in some way that he likes or cares about. The not good respite, again, for the care recipient and caregiver, we looked at what we don't want. And there's where we started blending in some of the COVID. So nobody wants to get sick or get COVID. We don't want other family members to get it. We don't want to be in the hospital. That's been a big worry of mine, is like, what happens if I go in the hospital or my husband goes in the hospital or both of us and Ben doesn't? Who's going to take care of him? Because by that point, then he would be exposed. So not good respite is that Ben would be exposed to COVID, that he's either upset, worried, or scared, or that we're worried about him. He's bored, not engaged, or that I feel guilty for taking a break. So those are the things we don't want to have happen. Oh, sorry. I had it where you could see it better, but I forgot it. I apologize. And so again, you'll have access to all these slides, so you can look this over. This is a trajectory I created early on, and I'm not going to go through all of it, but when the shutdown first happened, I was like, how do we help Ben keep having a good life when everything he likes to do is on hold, right? And so We really thought about what we want for Ben during the COVID crisis, which we had no idea would go on as long as it has and will. And then what we didn't want to have happen, which is very similar to what I just talked about. But then we really talked about ways that above this line, things we could do to help him stay connected, to stay healthy and active, to stay busy and not be bored, to have somewhat of a daily life routine. He's very routine oriented. He likes things to happen at certain times. And so when you throw the routine out the window, that just throws him off. And so we had to establish some kind of a routine of what a daily flow of life would look like for him. We had to think about the possible obstacles or barriers. You know, my husband still has to work. He's a essential employee. So potential exposure for us every day. So my poor husband has to arrive at the back door or the basement door and take off his shoes outside and spray them down and go change his clothes before he comes upstairs and then sanitize himself. And, you know, it's maybe overkill, maybe not, but we're very careful. You know, seeing COVID on the news all the time, cabin fever, all those different things. And so, you know, you can just grab a plain old trajectory anytime and really think through some of the issues and some of the things that you want to work on, you know, during this time. You definitely could do one for what it looks like to go back to school, you know. So questions so far before we go into this last section? Jill, do we have anything?
Not so far, no.
Okay, good. All right, so really want to dig into that star. So we've talked about what we want, what we don't want, some of the things that are impacting us as far as COVID. So how do we do respite in the middle of all this mess, right? I think that's what we all want to think about today. This is your integrated support star for respite. We also have a split star, but I wanted to just cover the basic star today. The split star really just lets you think about what's happening now, what you need moving forward. And you can really just draw a line down the plain star if you really want to do that approach as well. Another way you could think about it is, what did supports look like before COVID, and what do supports look like during COVID in each of these parts of the star? So there's different ways you can play around with that. So this is just our basic, we used to call them cheaters, but we call them starter stars now. So this is our basic starter star for respite options. This is for any time, not necessarily during COVID. And so there's lots of ideas on here, but I'm not going to go through them all because I really want to talk about respite now during this time. But again, you'll have access to that. And it's on that web page that I showed you. It will be on there as well, that you can download and use it. So really thinking about what kind of supports we need during COVID. And I'm breaking down each section of the star individually. So thinking about relationships, who are people that can help you have a short break or have some respite time by doing any of the following. And I said child here, but really it's with your loved one. So whether it's a person who's aging, a child, an adult with a disability, by doing things like video chatting, doing social distancing in the yard. We've done a lot of that before it got really super hot. Texting or calling, playing video games online. And this could be like an immediate family member. So what you can do is really encourage people to think about, well, who are some family members that they could connect with? And while they're talking to grandma, you could have some, you know, some just downtime, or you could go out and, you know, walk in the yard for 5 minutes. You know, so taking a break may look a lot different, but a break is a break, really. So how do we think about, you know, a family member who might be able to either come by and social distance, or maybe you have a family member or a friend who, you know, maybe Aunt Sue has been isolating herself as well. So she hasn't been exposed to other people. So she would be a safe person maybe to come over and hang out inside the house with your family member, whether it's a person who's aging, child, young adult, whatever. So you really have to get creative, I think, with the people that you have here. Friends. Ben's been very fortunate that one of his, a person who used to be a staff member that really is just now a friend, they use Facebook Messenger, and they talk, gosh, sometimes several times a week, but usually at least once a week. And, you know, they talk about all the things, he knows all the things that Ben likes, and they both like NASCAR. And so they talk a lot about racing and different things like that. And, you know, Steve will send him like, you know, little videos and stuff to look at. And so, you know, he does a great job of occupying Ben's time. If there's something that I need to get done, or maybe it's, you know, I have a chance to actually go for a walk or do something like that, then Ben can kind of hang out with him virtually while I do other things. Might be teachers, coaches, could be coworkers, other caregivers. So other people are in the same boat. So, you know, can you somehow have some sort of a respite pool where you take turns providing respite for each other? Might be an option. Your faith-based community. There's often people in these faith communities that want to help if you just tell them what you need them to do. Or, you know, during the summer, or even when school starts again, maybe a college student who, you know, maybe you don't want them inside your home, but maybe they can, you know, play games online, or come by the house and hang out in the yard with some distance and things like that. So lots of different ways to think about relationships. Personal assets and strengths. Again, we just threw out a lot of different ideas. You know, finding excuses to change rooms frequently. Again, like I said, you know, Ben and I sometimes just spread out in the house, right? So he's upstairs, I'm downstairs. You know, I can usually hear him walking around, or if he needs something, he'll be loud enough that I can hear him. So, you know, it's perfectly safe for him to do that. And so, you know, just changing that setting a little bit, you know, trying new things or learning how to do new things, just to keep him occupied so that, you know, he's not getting on my nerves and I'm not getting on his as much, is a form of respite, if you will, just to keep things peaceful. You know, making a video every now and then, you know, he'll make a video and send it to somebody. Or we celebrated his birthday virtually. The fire department and the police department, and a whole bunch of people came by and did a parade in front of the house, and we videotaped it. And so if I really need him to be occupied, I will put that on his iPad. He keeps erasing it. So when I put it back on the iPad, it's like brand new again. And it keeps him occupied, and he loves watching this. It was a big day for him, and he loves reliving it. So that's a way that I can kind of give him something to do while I do other things and just have some peace and quiet for myself. And so working on your child's abilities. So being able to either just stay alone for short periods of time, or just be in another room for a short period of time would be helpful. And then technology. I think I can't imagine what it was like in 1918 when people had to go through this without technology. I know they did just fine, but technology has saved our butts, I think. You know, we've been able to work at home. We've been able to stay connected with home or from home. I can't tell you how many times we had, you know, Zoom, you know, calls with our family members, because at first we were all afraid, even, you know, even Ben's twin brother and stuff, they, you know, we weren't going around them and they weren't coming around us. And so we wanted to see their faces and talk to them. And so using technology was amazing. You know, having a schedule, even some kind of a visual schedule on a computer or iPad or phone, for some people helps reduce anxiety, knowing what to expect. Using remote monitoring for short periods of time. And that doesn't have to be a really expensive thing. You can get these like Ring and different types of cameras that are not that expensive, so that, you know, if you do want to take a walk around the block, that, you know if somebody comes to the door in your house, you can check on the person that you're caring for. If they can stay home alone for short periods of time, it'll help keep you from worrying as much. You know, being able to text people and increase communication options. Again, virtual conferencing, things like Zoom and other formats like that. Lots of different apps that we can use to help people learn skills and also stay occupied, so that the caregiver can do other things. Doing virtual vacations. A lot of the national parks and different museums and things like that have had some really cool online stuff that is kind of fun to experience for both the caregiver and the care recipient. And then one of my favorite things, having virtual happy hour, is a big deal. And that's just for me, not for him, but he could. So anyway, okay. So the community, you know, online and special interest groups, having meetup groups online, you know, watching church services or faith services online, you know, getting involved in a volunteer project you could do from home, you know, community centers or parks and rec, having online activities or exercise classes is another way for people to kind of have a little bit of a break from everyday life. And then eligibility supports are pretty much the same as they've always been. You just have to use those different resources in a different way because of COVID. So this is an integrated support star I did for respite for Ben and I, short breaks for both of us to get away from each other. So one of the things that I do when my husband gets home, he hangs out with Ben after he gets home from work so that I can do Zumba or Pound, which is a exercise class. My office converts really quickly to my workout room. But that hour is gold. Nobody bothers me during that hour. I mean, nobody, not even the dog. So that's my time. That's my me time. And that's my daily break from everybody else. I mentioned Ben's friend Steve that chats with him on Messenger, having physical distance visits in the backyard with friends and family. You know, personal strengths that Ben has that really helps out is that he can stay upstairs while I work or take a break. He can stay home alone for short periods of time. So pretty much every morning I go out and take a quick half-hour walk in the mornings, usually before he gets out of bed. He has headphones. That's an asset that he has, that he can watch wrestling or listen to music while he's 2 feet away from me and I can't hear it. He's very routine oriented. We're very lucky that we have a downstairs space where, you know, I have an office and he has a separate TV hangout room. Technology, you know, Ben's iPad, the door camera. So while Ben's home alone for short periods of time, you know, I know if somebody shows up at the door, using Facebook Messenger, the community center where I access those live classes, fitness classes, using curbside pickup. You know, sometimes we just take a trip to go pick up something at the drugstore or Home Depot or whatever, just to get out of the house, to get us all out of the house and give us a break from being cooped up. And then some of the community assets that are online that we use. So that's just an example of how we use different ways of taking breaks. Another thing I did, which was really, it was hard, but it was so necessary for my peace of mind. And I was really stressed about it for a while before I did this, was really thinking about what if, right? What if something happens to Tom and I? What if we're in the hospital? You know, what if it's even worse? What do we need other people to know about to be a good substitute caregiver for Ben? So we really mapped out things around relationships, things around, you know, some of the assets that we have, you know, so that where people could get financial help if they need it. You know, the house is paid off. Ben has a trust. You know, what are some of Ben's strengths? Kind of how he uses technology that people would need to know about. You know, the community assets that he has, you know, the friends and the connections that he has and all the different things that he does in the community. You know, what are some of the eligibility supports? People don't know what those are. You know, they know he gets support from somewhere to help pay for a personal assistant, but who is that and how does he get it, right? So leaving a roadmap like this in the STAR would be very helpful if short-term or long-term, you had to have a different caregiver in place. So just a few tips. You know, you can choose to use just one of the tools. You don't have to use the whole portfolio. If you think the STAR looks cool, try it. If you think the vision and trajectory looks cool, try it. You know, try it for yourself. Try it with somebody that you support, and just see how it goes. Remember, it's more about having conversations and the actual process than it is about actually filling out a tool. So the tool just helps you guide that thinking and guide those conversations. Questions, Jill, so far?
I don't see any. If anyone has any questions, you feel free to
I wanted to
unmute
leave
yourself.
a little bit, yeah. And I really, so I'm just going to share, while you're thinking about your questions or comments or even your own stories, again, check out lifecoursетools.com that I just showed you a tiny little bit of. It's brand new, so much easier to find things than it used to be. We're still working on it, so if you can't find something, let us know, and we will try to help you find it. You know, there's tools for self-advocates. There's things that families can use specifically. You've got the respite tools, and then there's formal planning tools and forms as well. So I would love to hear if, you know, any of you have used the tools to help support someone else with respite during COVID. and how you use that. Any stories that you have or examples or questions would be awesome as well.
We did just get one question, Jane, from Mindy. She'd like to know where she can find Charting the Life Course on one slide. She said, I love that, but I can't find it on the site.
It's probably not on the site. I will see if that's something that we can put up there, because it's cool. But it's actually, you can't see it, but it's like a whole bunch of slides that it's all, yeah, I don't even know, somebody else made it. So that's a good question. Yeah.
Well, now you have it in the PowerPoint slide, so
yes,
feel free to use it.
Absolutely.
Any other questions? Feel free to unmute yourself too if you'd like to ask the question.
Absolutely.
Live.
And don't be shy. We're all friends here.
Well, while we're waiting, Jane, I actually have one question. This is Jill. Would it be too much trouble to go back to your website and maybe show us a tool, not a respite tool, but maybe a social distancing tool or one of your other COVID-related tools?
Absolutely. I can absolutely do that. 1 second. Let me unshare. There should be a smooth way to move to sharing and back and forth. I found that it doesn't work well for me. So,
yeah,
I just do it the old-fashioned way. Okay, so we're still on COVID. So let's go to, let's see. This one is just a trajectory for a good life during COVID. Oh, it's not very big. This was done by, I wish this would pop up bigger. This was done by a mom and her son in South Dakota. Derek is, I think he's in his mid-30s maybe. And they were generous enough to share with us. And there's actually some videos. I don't think we have them online yet, but with really Derek talking about what was important to him and how challenging it was for him to not be able to do the things he wanted to do right now. So I wish I could make this a little bit bigger, but I can't. Everything I try is not working. So, but anyway, yeah, so if you go to the website, you'll be able to see it a little bit more, but they really thought about, I'm not laughing because it's funny. It's just, it's so bizarre how we all thought this would be over in a few weeks, right? So it was like, this is Derek's trajectory for the next few weeks, but I suspect that it's probably been for a lot longer than that. But it was very similar to what I did about staying healthy, staying connected, being able to participate in his Bible study, watching church online, listening to music, staying informed and asking his parents questions about what's going on. They really talked about things like they wanted to avoid like an overload of information. So let's look at a different one and see if it's a little bit bigger. Let's see. So this was how somebody was implementing a telework plan. I think this was out of maybe Maryland. But it really talked about what it would look like for their staff to work from home and some of the things that they would need and the resources that they would need, which I thought was a really cool way to use the star as well. And then,
well, I love that you have examples up there that people,
yeah,
you know, if they're thinking specifically about social distancing or finding alternative caregivers or whatever the more pressing issue is, you do have a lot of examples up there of how to use the tools.
Yeah, this is a cool one too. And again, this is Ben's. I like to fill out tools, but it actually gave me a lot of peace of mind to do some of this stuff. And so this is to help somebody really understand your healthcare team. And so it really talks about like who's in Ben's life that would be his personal support team. So mom, dad, his brothers, family, friends, who his paid staff are, whether he has legal decision making or if he has a guardian or powers of attorney. And then down here, it's really understanding how, like if he goes to the doctor, he needs help understanding what they're saying, what their recommendations are, talking about what he needs and who can help him. And then it also gives ideas for the health professional on how they can best support him. Things like if they have pictures or diagrams or, you know, visual things that would help him. And then it really talks about how he communicates with medical professionals and then the help he might need with following through with their recommendations. And so, again, it was just something else I could get on paper that made me feel like if I wasn't around to tell people all these things, that they would know some more information about Ben. And again, that is, you can find that, that actual form is under health on the website. Let's see.
Erin has also shared some great webinars and examples of using the Charting the LifeCourse tools during COVID from Maryland, and she's put a link up there. So that would be great to see how one state office is using the tools for COVID.
Very nice. Thank you, Erin.
Thank you for sharing that, Erin. Yes. And there's one other question here before we run out of time. Stacy would love to know more, and she'd like to know if you have plans to train new ambassadors.
Yes, we will be having some open ambassador series starting up here in the next couple of months. I think as early as maybe September. So we will be looking for announcements on those. And again, there's a section on the website where you can find out about what the ambassador classes are going to be coming up. We've really tried to specialize those a little bit. So for instance, in Missouri, we're doing one specifically for Missouri families, excuse me, on just, family support. And it will be focused around that through our Missouri Family to Family. If we have some that are very specific for person-centered planners, we have some that are specific for organizational change. And so we tried to specialize a little bit so that we had cohorts that were more similar to each other and what they were actually trying to accomplish. And the other exciting thing about the ambassador series is Shelly is re-recording all of the webinars that give you the information about each of the principles. And so she's done, I think, 2 or 3 so far. And so as we go through this series that we're in right now, all of them are being upgraded or updated. And so that'll be exciting for anybody that wants to go through ambassadors and have some new, fresh material. So, great questions. Thank you. We have about 3 minutes left, Jill. So if we have any other questions, I'm here, but I think we're good.
Yeah, I think we're getting toward the end. Thank you again so much, Jane. It was really wonderful to see some real life examples of how these tools can really help us all when we're stuck at home during COVID-19 caring for someone else.
Yeah, and if people have examples, I'm sorry, if people have examples or in the next, couple of months, if you have some good examples, send them to us. We would love to see what you're doing. And, if we can redact some of the personal information and share them on the website, even better. So, but you can let us know whether that's okay or not when you do that. But we would love to see the examples.
Yes, Arch would love to see that also, especially those that are giving breaks to family caregivers and how you're helping support them during this time. That would really be wonderful. Again, thank you very much, Jane. I do want to ask everyone, you will be receiving an email right after the webinar asking you to please give us your feedback. So we'd love to hear more from you. It also will give you an opportunity to let Arch know about other topics you might like to have webinars or informational sessions on. So it's a very quick survey. We appreciate you taking the time, and I hope you all have a wonderful afternoon. And again, many thanks to Jane for visiting with us again. And we'll be planning our next webinar for all of you soon.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.